where your life takes a turn you never saw coming. A day where something so shocking, so out of character happens. And yet, that very moment becomes the seed for your greatest transformation. As for me, that was the day I slapped my mother in law. Yes, you heard me right. I slapped my mother in law. Now, before you start judging me or typing in the comment section about how disrespectful that sounds, let me just say this. I'm not proud of what I did. It was wrong. It was messy. It was emotional. And also, it was inhuman. But that one act, as shameful as it might sound, opened the door to something so much bigger than I ever imagined. Because that was also the day she blessed me. And not just a casual, God bless you kind of way. I mean a deep, life changing blessing that shifted the entire direction of my life. So today, I want to share this story with you. It is not easy to talk about it, but I believe someone out there needs to hear this. Maybe you're struggling with family conflicts. Maybe you're battling pride, resentment, or misunderstanding. Or maybe you just need to know that healing and transformation can come from the most unexpected place. If that is you, stay with me to the end because this isn't just a story about anger or regret. It's a story about grace, forgiveness, and the mysterious way life teaches us lesson. So let's go back to when it all started. When I first got married, I was full of excitement, that honeymoon phase where everything feels new and hopeful. Like my husband and I were just started journey together. Yes, we were building dreams, talking about kids, houses, careers, and the whole package. But with marriage, as many of you know, it's just about two people. It's about two families becoming one. And in my case, that meant my husband's mother. Now, let me be honest with you. From the first day, I could feel that my mother in law and I were not cut from the same cloth. Like she was, let's just say, a very strong woman, the kind who believes she knows the best, the kind who has a voice in everything, from how her son should eat to how he should dress to how often we should visit her. And she had options, she has opinion. And when I say opinion, guys, I mean strong opinion. At first, I tried to brush it off. I thought it's just the early days, like she will come around, she will one day want to, accept me. But instead of softening, things got harder. She would correct me in front of people, guys. She would question my cooking. She would compare me to other women. And she thought her own opinion were, better wives. And the worst part of it, my husband caught between his mother and his wife. He often choose to be silent. He often choose to support the mother in everything he does. Like he doesn't even see anything wrong in what I'm saying. He doesn't even take my opinion or my advice. And guys, if you've ever been in that position, you will know that silence feels like betrayal. Honestly. So over the time, the tension grew, little argument becomes big fights, every family gathering was like walking on eggshells. And no matter what I did, it never felt good enough for her. Guys, I'll be honest. I started resenting her deeply. I started ignoring her, but it wasn't easy to just, ignore. So one particular incident still sticks out in my mind. On that fateful day, we had gone over to her house for dinner, and I had to cook a dish I was really, really proud of. Like I so much love cooking that meal. Sometimes I do spend hours preparing it, making sure it was just right. So When we brought it over, she took one bite, give that face and said, hmm, maybe next time you should let me teach you how it's really, really done. Like, she looked me in the face and she said that I don't even know how to cook, that my food tastes awful. Is this what his son eats? Is this what I feed his son with? That was the biggest embarrassing day of my life. Guys, could you imagine? Everyone laughed awkward. But inside me, something cracked. I smiled on the table, I smiled outside, and in my mind and in my heart. But then I felt humiliated. So moments like that, it kept piling up, things kept getting worse, and all of that. And a comment here, sometimes she will jab me, sometimes, she will do all kinds of things just to make sure that she irritates me. So I started carrying that bitterness, like, a backpack that got heavier every day. It wasn't really, really easy. So fast forward to a few months ago, I was already emotionally drained, honestly. My husband and I were fighting more often, always shouting at his mother. I felt like I was losing him to her influence. And worse, I was losing myself, actually. So that day came. We had invited her over to our home, and I had tried my best in order to prepare everything perfectly well, hoping that maybe this time around she will approve it. Maybe this time around she do say something nicer and kind. But instead, guys, she walked in, looked around and started criticizing everything. The curtain, is this curtain washed? When was the last time you people watched this curtain? You stay idle, you do nothing, and all of that. The way, like, she talked virtually about everything, how I arrange the furniture, that it is not well placed as a woman, as a modern wife, I should know better. Guys, and then she said something that I won't even repeat the exact word, but it cut me deep. It wasn't just about me, to be sincere. It was about my family, where I came from. And right in that moment, something inside me snapped. I don't even know if it was more, months of frustration or years of frustration, or, my years of trying to prove to this woman, or sometimes I feel like, is this raw human wickedness or what? At some point, I lost control. So before I could think, sometimes, before I could stop myself, my hand rose. And that was the day I regretted it. I landed her with that hot slap. Guys, so my hand went to her cheek, and at that point in time, my husband froze, and I stopped right there. Like, my heart started pounding. Realizing what I had done, I thought that was the end of it all. So I thought that I had destroyed everything I've built over the years. You understand? But then I didn't even give a damn at that point. I didn't give it. Yes, I regretted it. I do. But then I didn't take it to heart, because at that moment I felt like, I've accomplished one thing. You understand? So something happened that I will never forget after that moment. This woman looked at me, and instead of her being angry, instead of her laying curses on me, instead of her to beat me back, or to fall and start being dramatic, you know how mother-in-laws can be. She spoke words that shook me to my bone marrow. She spoke words that shook me to the core. Her cheeks were still red where my hand had landed. My own palm stung as if it knew the sin it had just committed. And my husband's face was pale, his mouth half open. But guys, no words came out. The air in the room was so heavy. It felt like even breathing was wrong at that moment. But then she looked at me, not with rage, not with hatred, not with the piercing fire that I expected. Instead, she smiled, a small, sad, almost motherly smile. And she said, now, maybe we can, finally be honest with each other. And I snapped at it. I blinked. But truth of the matter is, I didn't even understand. Was this a trick or a setup from this woman? But then, who cares? She reached out to me, placed her trembling hand on me, and whispered words that have never left me. She said, "My daughter, sometimes pain is only way truth comes out. You've carried so much, and today you broke. But listen to me. This house, this marriage, your future will be blessed because you are stronger than you know. And because today you showed me your heart, even in anger. I bless you, my daughter. I bless your home. I bless your womb. And I bless the years you have ahead." At that point, guys, tears welled up in her eyes, like tears welled up even in my own eyes. And my husband finally moved, his hand covering his face, trying to process what has just happened. Whew. I had braced myself for curses, for insults, for insults, and guys, it was the most embarrassing day. So after that incident, for days after that incident happened, I was lost. I couldn't eat properly. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the moment replay, my hand raising, rising on her cheek, turning. Her words falling like oil on fire. How could she bless me? Why didn't she scream? Why didn't she hate me? The guilt was unbearable. I thought about calling her, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, but every time I picked up my phone, my pride whispered, "She could apologize to you first. She's been making your life miserable." But even when I tried to listen to, my own pride and everything, and thinking of all she has said, "I bless you, I bless your home, I bless your womb, and I bless your years ahead." Then something strange happened. So within a week of that incident, my husband and I, after months of tensions and distance, keeping malice, we found ourselves talking again. Not shallow, surface level talking. No, this is real talking. Late night, heart spilling conversation that reminded me why I married him in the first place. So it was as if her blessing had broken some invisible wall in our home. That is it. So a few weeks later, I finally gathered the courage to visit her. So I was shaking the whole ride, there. My mind kept preparing me for her anger, for her to bring up the slap in front of relatives, for her to even, look at me with coldness. But then when she opened the door, she hugged me tight. And then she did something I never expected. She told me her stories. And for the first time since I had known her, guys, I spoke about her own life, not as my mother in law, not as my husband's mother, but as a woman. So she told me about the struggles she faced when she first got married, how her own mother in law had, been harsh, critical, and cruel, and how she had spent years trying to prove herself, only to be constantly compared and diminished. So, how she also cried silently in her own pillow many nights, wishing someone, anyone, would see her heart. And then she said, "I didn't even realize I was doing the same thing to you." Sometimes we become, what hurts us without even knowing it. And that story really broke me. So I saw her not as the, bad woman, in my marriage and in my story, but as another wounded woman, repeating a cycle she never healed from. So from that day, something shifted between us. It wasn't instant forgiveness, actually. It wasn't like we suddenly became best friends, but there was a crack in the wall that has stood between us for a very long time. So we started small, sharing tea without criticism, cooking together without comparison, laughing at silly things. And slowly, over weeks and months, that fragile crack turned into a doorway. And my husband noticed it too. So, for the very first time in my marriage, he didn't feel torn between us. He didn't even feel like he had to choose. You understand? And that alone brought peace, which brought me, a lot of good things in my marriage. You understand? And in that quiet moment, when I thought back, to the days of the slap, I realized something profound. Sometimes the lowest, ugliest, most shameful moment of our life becomes the soil we are hailing, upon, and all of that. So, um, this is just a story. Sometimes we might just see it as a folktale, or things that doesn't just happen. No, looking back, I realized that slap wasn't the most important part of story. Yes, now the real story was everything that came after. And here is the lesson that I learned from this story. Lesson that reshaped my life, and my thinking, my marriage, and everything. See, hurt people when you hurt people, just like my mother-in-law, she wasn't just cruel because she hated me. She was repeating what had, happened in her life during her own time. And trust me, pride is an enemy of healing. Yes. And another thing is that blessing has powers of its own. Likewise, freedom is free for everyone. And also, we also need to know that family isn't perfect. There is no perfect family anywhere, actually. So today, when I look at my mother-in-law, I don't even see the woman I once resented. I see the grandmother of my child. I see the woman who, through her flaws and failures, still found a way to bless me. So, do we still argue sometimes? Of course. And do we still disagree? Absolutely. But now, there is love underneath it all. There is understanding, and there is history that has been created. And sometimes when I'm rocking my baby to sleep, guys, I thought about that day, the day I slapped her, and I shiver at how, different life could have turned out if she had chosen anger instead of the blessing. So, if she had cursed me instead of blessing me, if she had walked away instead of drawing me closer, that day could have been the end of everything. So instead, I became the beginning. Yes. So why am I telling you guys this story? I'm telling you guys this story because maybe you are in the middle of your own family war right now. Maybe you are exhausted from trying to please someone who never seems satisfied. And maybe you've said or done things that you will regret. But here is what I want you to hear today. Sometimes the ugliest moments, in our lives can be the doorway to healing. And sometimes the people who hurt us most can also be the ones who blesses us. And maybe, just maybe, your story isn't just over yet. So if this story really, really spoke to you, do me a favor, hit that like button so that other people can find this story. Okay, share this video with someone who needs encouragement, and don't forget to subscribe, because I've got more real life stories with raw lessons and honest conversation coming your way. And guys, finally, I want to hear from you, okay, concerning this story. Go down to the comment section and drop what you think about this action. And have you ever had a family, relationship that felt impossible, but somehow it turned around, or maybe you are still in the middle of it? What is that biggest part for you right now? Your story matters, and who knows, your comments might be the blessing someone else needs. Guys, until next time, remember that grace can actually grow in the most unexpected place. So let us keep sharing. Let us keep, getting that inspiration we want. As time goes on, we are going to see a huge difference in our marriage. So thank you for coming around. This is actually not a real life story. You understand? This is a folk tale. Just in case you're wondering whether I passed through all this, of course I didn't. All right. So thank you guys. I really, really appreciate you for staying with me to this moment. Progetto Crystal, how are you doing? Fashion store. Hi, how you doing? So sorry, I didn't want to be disrupted during my story. That's why I didn't look at the screen. Okay, how are you guys doing? Where are you chatting from? Okay, Projecto, you're watching from Brazil. That's amazing. Welcome. I'm hosting you live all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you for joining, guys. Until then, I'm signing out from here. All right. Do have a lovely night rest. Bye.